My name is Jennifer Ahern Koch. I'm president of the Tahiti Park Neighborhood Association. We come to CCNA as a young and small neighborhood association that needs your help with a land use issue in our neighborhood. Tahiti Park is bordered on the north by Whitaker Bayou, on the east by US 41, the south by Whitaker Gateway Park, and the west by Sarasota Bay. We can trace our neighborhood back to 1851, when the Whitakers, Sarasota's first official citizens, lived in our neighborhood on the Whitaker Bayou. Like a lot of Sarasota neighborhoods, Tahiti Park consists of single-family residences, a mix of old and new homes, with one even dating back to 1910. We are most proud and protective of our natural vegetation and lush tree canopy. There's only one entrance and exit to our neighborhood, which is on Hampton Road. About a month ago, the city posted signs announcing a community workshop to discuss a rezone of 2 lots in our neighborhood, one located at 1186 and 1174 Hampton Road. These lots are currently 2 vacant parcels zoned residential multifamily moderate density, or RMF3, on which 30 years ago there was a single-family home. These lots had been residential multifamily moderate density. So when we saw the sign for a rezone request from residential multifamily 3 to NT or North Trail, we thought, that's odd. Shouldn't they also be requesting a future land use comp plan amendment change first? In order to understand our neighborhood's issue, one has to understand the difference between land use and zoning. So please indulge me while I explain. The city has a future land use map which literally designates every parcel in the city to an overall land use category. Single family, multifamily, community commercial, etc. These land use designations are like the railroad tracks of the city. We try to stick to the land use map. It is our overall guide, and it is significant when a parcel's land use changes from one use to another. In fact, it requires 3 public hearings consisting of a community workshop, a public hearing before the planning board, and a public hearing before the city commission. In addition, a supermajority vote by the city commission of at least 4-1 is required for such a change. So a land use change is not a minor adjustment or small change. Anyway, the city is broken down parcel by parcel by certain overall land uses, and inside the land use category are subcategories, which are zonings. So under residential multifamily moderate density, for example, you have 4 possible zoning choices: residential multifamily 1, residential multifamily 2, residential multifamily 3, and G, or government zone. In the community commercial land use category, you have CND, CSD, CRD, CGD, CSC, NT, and G as zoning choices. Then, in a 3rd level, the city has a use table that lists which specific uses are allowed: heights, densities, setbacks, etc. When the community workshop sign listed a request for a zoning change from residential multifamily to North Trail, which is in the 2nd level, one would assume a land use change would be the first requirement. It only makes sense. I called the city and spoke to senior planner David Smith. He explained the underlying land use was not residential multifamily moderate density as we had thought, but instead community commercial, and therefore eligible for rezone to NT. This was a shock because this was news to us and it didn't make any sense. When had this happened, and why had the neighborhood not known about it? I asked David if he could look into the issue and give us further information. A couple of days later, Gretchen Sari and I met with David. He said that apparently the land use changed in 2007 and 2008 during the EAR process that used to be mandated by the state, so that every 7 years, cities were required to go through their comp plan, which includes the future land use map, and update the roughly 1,000-page document. The process could take 2 or 3 years, multiple community meetings, commission meetings, public hearings, and a zillion hours of work by the city planning staff. David was head of the last comp plan update. Other city planning staff members each took a chapter or two, but David was the one who was overseeing the whole process. David said he recalled no discussion of these specific parcels' proposed land use change, but could only assume staff logic may have been at the time like facing like. However, David could provide me with no documentation and could recall no discussion of this change, neither by the city staff nor the public, with the exception of the land use maps, specifically the old land use map that had these two parcels colored orange for multifamily land use, and in the updated map on which they were colored red for community commercial land use. David did give me a document which talks about the North Trail generically and making minor adjustments, and another document announcing an open house discussion on the topic of neighborhoods. And that is it. That is all the documents we have. After our meeting with David, I immediately called Dick Clapp, our District 2 representative on the City Commission at the time the EAR was approved, and asked why he did not let me or someone from our neighborhood know about the potential land use change. He said he had been very involved and studied the proposed changes to the comp plan during the EAR process, both before he was elected to the City Commission and continued to study it, of course, after being on the City Commission, this taking place over a 2 or 3 year period. He recalled no discussion or written documentation about those two parcels and surely would have alerted us had he seen anything. I asked the same question of Kelly Kirshner, the District 3 representative on the City Commission, who said that he too neither read nor heard anything about the land use change in Tahiti Park. The only written documentation was the future land use map. The commissioners would have had to literally compare parcel by parcel from the old map to the proposed map to see the color on those parcels change from orange to red. So, there was no written or verbal notification. No public process followed for this land use change, a change that would normally require 3 public hearings and a supermajority vote of 4 to 1 on the City Commission. Imagine the surprise and discontent of my neighbor whose home abuts these parcels when I explained all of this to him. He bought his house in 2005 when the land use was multifamily, moderate density, and zoned residential multifamily 3. Now, without there ever having been any notification, not to him personally, not by his neighborhood representative, not by his District 2 City Commission representatives, not by city staff, not by anyone, the property's land use next to his house was changed from residential to commercial. During the EAR comp plan amendment process, even errata changes or publishing errors are discussed. These are minor updates or almost literally text corrections. Why wouldn't a major land use change in a residential neighborhood be given the same process? Let me ask you this. Don't you think that at some point in time, the city staff person responsible for literally changing the future land use map color from orange to red should have made sure that someone else, David Smith, city staff, a commissioner, Dick Clapp, a neighborhood representative, a neighbor, or someone who would be affected by this change knew about the land use change from residential to commercial? If not in writing, at the very least, someone could have tapped Dick Clapp on the shoulder and pointed to the 2 tiny parcels and said, "We want to change these from residential to commercial. What do you think?" The best situation would have been before or during the EAR process, of course, but no one alerted us to this change even after the fact. No one knew about this. We are in no way accusing anyone of misconduct. Perhaps this was an oversight or misunderstanding. maybe a simple suggestion by a planning staff member that was not fully analyzed or discussed and was erroneously instituted without process. We need your help and feel this is not only our issue, but an issue that should be of concern to all our city neighborhoods and this organization that represents them. Our resolution is as follows. Resolved that ccna assist the Tahiti Park Neighborhood Association in determining the procedure, or lack thereof, by which the land uses on 1186 and 1174 Hampton Road were changed from multi-family moderate density to community commercial, including possible recourse and/or reversion to the correct land use for the association, and additionally investigate whether parcels in other city neighborhoods may have been similarly changed. Thank you.